is your girl Vanna. You are now tuning in to the Hood Talks podcast, where community voice matters. Hey, what is up, y'all? This is your girl Vanna with the Hood Talks podcast, and I am bringing you another dope segment of the Hood Needs. We are talking to a great organization, and I am so happy to have this guest here with me today. Go ahead and tell the people who you are.
Hi, so grateful to be on. My name is Nichole Dawsey. I'm the executive director of Prevent+Ed. We used to be called NCADA, or National Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse. We're doing the exact same thing. Our mission is the same, but our name is a little different.
All right. And you said you guys have been around for a while, just a name change. How long have you been in the game?
Since 1965. Yeah, a long time.
Yes.
And I've been with the organization for 14 years, believe it or not. It's a long time.
Okay.
So I'm like 3, basically.
All right. Well, go ahead and tell the people, what all services do you all provide, and what is Prevent+Ed? What is it? What do you guys do?
So we're a nonprofit, and we work to reduce or prevent the harms of alcohol and other drug use in 3 ways: through education, intervention, and advocacy. So advocacy, pretty self-explanatory. We try to put policies into place that will destigmatize and decriminalize substance use disorders. Education is usually a little surprising to people because we go into schools beginning in kindergarten and talk to kids about making healthy choices, not good or bad or right or wrong, but we talk about making healthy choices. And then intervention. So let's say that somebody is struggling with a substance, a youth or an adult. They need to know what their options are. They need to know what's the severity of their challenges. Not everybody who walks in our doors has an addiction. Not everyone can just like go home and, like wake up the next morning and be okay. There's a whole spectrum, but we don't provide treatment. So if somebody walks into our doors, we can do an assessment with them, and it's free for teenagers, $25 for adults. We can do an assessment with them and figure out what's going to be the best fit for them. So we take into account, like I said, the severity of their addiction, or if they even have one, but also like their resources that they have available. Do they have a job that they need to keep? Not everybody can just like take off for 30 days and go to like Arizona or whatever. Not everyone can do that, right?
Oh,
or maybe they have
everyone is not that privileged. You're right.
No. And some people aren't even there. So let's say that they know that they've got a quote unquote problem, but they're not there and they have not come to grips with it. And so maybe they need something that's outpatient, or maybe they need something that is very like higher power focused, or maybe they're like, I don't have a higher power. I don't want a higher power. Like I want something that's very like me centric. So our counselors do a great job of assessing where that individual is, and then making an appropriate referral. And that could be locally, that could be something that costs, that also could be something that's like a fellowship group that's totally free of charge. And then if somebody wants something swanky out of state, we can refer to that too. So we really provide a wide variety of services, but the goal of what we do is to prevent it from even happening in the first place, or to prevent it from getting worse, right? So we want to just prevent it from escalating as much as possible.
And I like it that it's centered around the person's needs.
Yes,
that's the goal, and that's the point of like really coming in, like you said, I may just be coming in and saying, hey, I smoke socially, and I drop dirty from my job, and I can stop, I can quit, but I want my job, I want to keep my job. So, and you'll be able to help me and guide me through that process of, staying clean, getting, connected with whoever I need to be connected to help me keep my employment. So shout out to you all for doing that and being really centered around the people, because that's, again, important. And you know, the Hood Talks podcast, we talk a lot about urban community and resources, providing resources for the urban community. And I know we've had a conversation and talked about like the lack of resources when it comes to drug and alcohol for African Americans. And I know that you really wanted to uplift your organization because, you know, you wanted people to know that you guys are here to help. Let's talk about that specific thing right there. Like, how can you guys really help the community of urban community when we're talking about addressing these sometimes, like you said, the needs and the resources that they lack, let alone not really having maybe an addiction, but just needing resources or the connection.
Yeah, I mean and what you're describing is such a weighty and like nuanced challenge, right? Like it's not, I think it is easy for some people to say, oh, well, certain groups use drugs because there aren't resources and they have nothing else to do, or they don't have access to jobs or generational wealth or whatever. Like, yes. And what are you going to do about it? Right. And that also puts a lot of blame, right? Mm-hmm. And I think for years, we at Prevent+Ed, but also just the field and nonprofits in general, if I'm being really honest, have gone in with money to try to fix a problem that either A, might not really be a real problem because there's other more pressing issues.
Right.
Or, well, what are you doing telling me in my community that this is a problem? Like, who are you? Right. And so then I think we've had a tendency to swoop in and very white saviory, like, we're going to tell you exactly what's the method, exactly what's the intervention to fix this quote unquote problem. Right. And we're going to use proper terms and we're going to, you know, help. We're going to help a lot of helpers.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And so when you talk about what we at Prevent+Ed are doing differently, we've been on a journey, which is like such like an overused phrase, but I don't know how else to say it.
I get it.
For the last couple of years, so really since like beginning of 2018, where we had some staff of color, but also some younger staff who were like, this approach is not okay anymore. And we are serving kids, all kids, we're serving people, all people, but are we like really getting what they want or what we think that they want? And we're calling it decriminalization, but like, let's be real. It is a war on drugs, which is a failed racist agenda. Like that's really what it is. So let's call it what it is.
Yes.
Yep. And instead of, so we've really like 180'd our approach. So instead of me, who, in case someone's just listening to this, I'm a white woman, okay? Instead of me going into a community of color and saying, here's what I think we need to do to fix X problem, we are saying, what do you need from us? And oh, by the way, there are groups here who are minority-led, women-led, faith-led, who have been doing this work for a very long time, who maybe just haven't had the platform that we as an organization who've been around since 1965, we're a United Way organization, we have a big platform. Right. So how can we use our platform to elevate lived experience, community voice, and then step out of the way, which is like, I think the thing that doesn't always happen.
Very important thing that needs to stepping. Yes.
Yep. We are stepping out of the way. And, you know, at the same time where we're going in to support communities, let's say like there's an organization we're involved with in the Baden neighborhood. I'm not from Baden. If I walk around in Baden, they're going to think that I am like trying to convert them. Okay. And by them, I mean the residents of Baden. So if I'm walking around on the streets of Baden, knocking on doors, they're gonna be like, who is this lady trying to convert me? Okay. Right. Now, if we say to the people at this organization, Living with Purpose, that are right on Broadway in Baden, what do you need to serve your community? How can we help? And then, oh, by the way, we're going to step back, not because we want you to do the work, but
Right.
because you've been doing the work all along.
All along. We're just here to support.
Exactly. We are here to support and be a foundation and a backbone, and you tell us what you need. I think that is something we're doing differently, and we're purposefully seeking out communities that have been historically ignored. So there are real treatment deserts in areas of North City and North County, where
big time.
Neighborhoods don't have a grocery store, much less access to treatment.
Right.
And people aren't going to treatment because in the past, when you go to get help, you are ushered into a system, whether that's the criminal justice system, that is the juvenile system, or whether that's the treatment system. And so we're trying to bring peers, so people who have lived experience, to communities where there is a lack of access, because not because people don't want it, but because the built environment has not been built to support these resources. And saying, we're bringing resources to you for you to access them in the way that feels comfortable to you and natural to you. We're not trying to tell people and diagnose everyone that they have this issue or they need this. I'll say beyond it too, it's like, it's a language change, because if we go in and we talk about substance abuse or substance use or addiction, there are people who use substances, they smoke weed every day.
And I was going to say, they probably don't see themselves as an addict, or they don't identify as
not at all,
or an addict, or, they think that they're perfectly fine. Or let's keep it real 100 right now. Marijuana, it's legal in certain states, right? So it's not criminal in certain states. So people are like, I'm not a criminal if it's legal over there in California or in Vegas. Why am I gotta be called out as an addict because Missouri ain't caught up? So people don't maybe not identify as that. So
they don't identify. It's complicated, right? It is complicated. I work in this field and I still don't know exactly which states you have to have a medical card, which states you can use if you're an adult. If you have a job and test positive for a substance, that's when it becomes a consequence for most people, right? Most people, and we're talking about adults here. Like, let me be clear, I'm not advocating for cannabis use amongst teenagers, but most people who use marijuana, are not experiencing daily consequences from it. It is also being used as a weapon for communities of color. So when we talk about, trying to dissuade people from using marijuana or cannabis, it is less as like you're a bad person, this is going to make your life terrible, and more of a, right now in the state of Missouri, it is illegal. And unless you have a medical card, which you have to jump through all these hoops for, and and so you're having disproportionate amounts of people that are being exposed to the criminal justice system because of a substance that is legal some places and not legal other places. And we think it's confusing for adults. Try talking to a middle schooler about this stuff. I mean, their heads explode. They're like, I'm so confused.
They can't, it's a lot to try to even process. Like you said, even adults to this day can't understand it. So how do you think you're going to explain it to a teenager who is literally trying to navigate it, but you just can't. They don't, their mind is not set on being legally a smoker. They're just probably doing something that friends are doing, or
that's right.
They've just been exposed to from their environment, maybe, so it's not like I'm going to do this legally. I'm just doing what I feel like is maybe cool right now.
Exactly.
As an adult might be doing it because of other issues, meaning coping mechanisms. I'm just trying to get high so
get by.
Yeah, like, you know, I got anxiety that's high through the roof. So this is what calms me down. Or I got an eating disorder and this is what helps. So yeah, like it's different. It's a different, yeah. And so again, what I like to highlight and say that you guys are doing is meeting people where they are and helping and guiding them through that process, no matter what it looks like for them. And then making it centered around what their needs are and not just coming in with one way. You know,
yes,
some people could come and say, hey, you're an addict, you smoke. Okay, you're an addict, go to rehab.
No. And I mean, number one, that is not going to work for most people. Number two,
not going to work for everybody.
No. And I don't know about you, but if you come at me and tell me that I have a problem with something, I'm going to say, no, you have a problem. Right. And really, I mean, when it becomes when there are consequences involved, that's when it impacts your life. And that's when you need to make some sort of change. Maybe it's decreasing the amount that you're smoking. Maybe it's, smoking on the weekends as opposed to, before you work, if you're coming to work and they can smell you, whatever. It's right. Making those changes. And then if and when you decide that you're ready to stop, then we'll support you in that too. And we support people who are in long-term recovery, which means they don't do anything. And that's there. It's all part of the journey. And, I think cannabis and marijuana, I mean, obviously that's a huge issue. And by issue, I don't mean problem. I mean, that is a topic in communities, particularly communities of color. Now, there is one problem in communities of color that I do want to talk about. And this is not me, Nichole, saying it's a problem. We are seeing deaths specifically hitting, Black males.
Opiates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Opiates. Yes.
Yep. It's real.
So we are seeing rising overdose deaths amongst all populations, really, but most specifically Black males. And actually before COVID, and this is, I'm going to keep it pretty real here. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
This is the Hood Talks podcast.
Okay. All right.
Keep it real and raw. That's how we roll.
Okay. So before COVID, all groups had started to decrease in the amount of overdose deaths from heroin and fentanyl and opioids. All groups except Black men. And we knew that we needed to do different, right? So we needed to elevate more community experience. We needed people like me to step out of the way. We needed to do more grassroots, Narcan distribution. Like we knew that we needed to do something different. And by the way, it can't be a bunch of people that look like me deciding these things, right?
I agree.
Yes. So that was before COVID. COVID hits and all hell breaks loose. I hope, I can say that, but all hell breaks loose.
This is the Hood Talks podcast.
Okay. All right.
Now,
okay, great.
Your organization, I don't know, but this one over here, we good. We good.
All right. I'm good. I curse all the time. My staff know that about me. So all hell breaks loose and overdose deaths amongst all populations start skyrocketing.
Wow.
But of course, because deaths among Black men were already high, the numbers were
even higher.
I mean, even higher. Black women started experiencing overdose deaths at higher rates. And a lot of that has to do with exactly what you were talking about before, which is that coping mechanism. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
the lack of mental health resources.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. I was just going to ask you guys, are you out here helping with that too? Because that's one of them too, is the lack of mental health resources in the Black community. Yes.
Absolutely. And done in a way, when the mental health resources are provided, they need to be done in a way that feels comfortable.
Yes.
And accessible. And I'm not talking about like, can you walk there? I mean like accessible. Do they feel comfortable? Culturally accessible. Do they feel like home? Like not judgy? Like
safe. Right? They want to feel safe. Right.
Safe. Everybody, that's all you want at the end of the day is to feel safe.
Yes.
So when the numbers started like just skyrocketing, we sort of started throwing, and by we, I mean the state of Missouri, started throwing, and it wasn't just the state of Missouri, by the way, it was across the country. We saw overdose deaths just exponentially just explode because people were feeling nervous and anxious and isolated. And anytime you have those feelings of uncertainty, any group experiences rises in substance use disorder because it's that coping. You don't know how to cope. You're using a substance to cope. Yeah. Now, you also typically see higher rates of things like self-harm and suicide because you don't know how to cope. You got to go somewhere with those feelings.
Yes.
So this happened across the board, but again, it was higher for groups of particularly Black men. And so we started throwing everything at the wall. So the state has upped Narcan distribution, both the nasal spray, but also the intramuscular shot. For a while, people were like, ooh, I don't want to mess with needles. Well, guess what? If you're using substances, like, you're probably comfortable with needles. Yeah. So if we want to actually, and that's a leap, but I think you know what I'm saying. If you're using heroin, you're probably comfortable with needles. Okay.
You get to that point where you may be shooting up, right? And so
yes, exactly.
Needles. So why not have the Narcan in a needle version?
Yes. So. And if I'm a provider or if I'm a first responder and I'm not comfortable with needles, guess what? I'm missing out on a huge percentage of the population that I'm charged with serving just because I'm not comfortable. Like, I need to get comfortable. Yeah. I also need, and we as a field, we have gotten comfortable with being uncomfortable. So it is not uncommon for us to go into a community, like the Baden example I gave before, to go to Baden and say, I'm not from Baden. Y'all have been doing this a long time. What do you need? And we thought we knew what we were doing, right, but clearly we're not doing something right. Mm-hmm. So we need help. Not we're here to help you,
but help us.
Yes.
So that we can make sure that these numbers go down.
That's correct. Yeah. That's correct. And I will say that, I have personally been involved in some very direct conversations with people saying, I've been doing this, and now you're going to come in here and you're going to swoop in and you're going to, yeah. And where are you going to be when the money runs out in a couple of years? And guess what? Those are all very fair,
valid points.
And I'm listening now. And I think the partners at the state are listening now. I think other treatment facilities are listening. We have a long way to go. Please hear me, that we are not doing everything right.
Right.
But I think we're starting to understand that we have to do different.
And it starts with those conversations that you're having. So exactly, shout out to you for, again, and that's another thing that I love to highlight and say, that it starts with getting uncomfortable and being okay with being uncomfortable, and then being open to have the conversation so that we can see what changes need to be made from the people themselves, from the community, or from the folks that's already out there doing the work and who might not have the resources or be able to have the platform, like you said.
That's right.
So kudos to you all for doing that. I know it's a lot of work. I know you might all, get some pushback, but it's needed. It's definitely really needed. I do want to get into on how can someone connect with you, not only for services, but what if there's an organization out here, like, I'm a grassroots organization, I'm just getting started, this is something that I'm wanting to partner with, or, get some of your assistance and help with to help move my stuff along. How can one reach out and connect with you on that?
Absolutely. And you are exactly right. So if somebody's listening, they're an organization and they're like, hey, I'm here, I've been here all along, like, I want to be part of the conversation, like, they're encouraged to reach out. If somebody wants to join our community advisory board or join, our board of directors, like, we are always looking for people. Of course, we're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for people to share their story. We also get money from the state to not build, because we're not building them, support. See, it's like constant in my brain. I have to just change the way and constantly course correct.
It's a never ending learning.
It is.
Believe me, it is. It's a never ending, like, you are always going to have to stop, correct. Okay, let me,
Yes,
and
exactly. So
kudos to you for catching it though.
well, thank you. It's a journey.
Yes.
So I always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. So
Yes.
we receive money from the state. Specifically, we have 6 staff who do nothing but support local community coalitions. These are grassroots community groups that are like, we want something addressed in our community. Now, in some places, it's parent groups who are like, we're tired of that one house throwing those big parties where drinking happens and kids are puking in the front yard. Other places, it's like, hey, we have no alternative activities for kids. Like once school lets out, there's nothing else for them to do.
Yeah.
Right. So we support community coalitions. We can help them write grants. We can help them do training opportunities. We can help them like have fun stuff to give away, because that's always how you incentivize participation. And so if somebody is sitting there listening going like, well, I want that in my community, or if they just want an assessment because they need to, or they think maybe their patterns of behavior are leading them to that point, or their kids are driving them nuts and they know that they got to do something with their teenager or their grandkid that's just keeps getting in trouble at school. Yeah. They can, our email, like our website is prevented.org. So it's just like the word prevented.org. We also have a phone number that you can call, and we will, if we don't answer, we'll call you right back if you need an assessment. And that's 314-962-3456. And then we're on all the social channels. So except for TikTok, my staff keeps wanting us to do TikTok, and I'm like, I might have to retire if that's the case. Please don't make me do TikTok.
I was like, I can't get with the TikTok, but
no,
but that's where the young folks are. So I know
I can't do it. But we're on Insta and Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. So
I gotcha. So I mean, you guys are really doing not only the work around uplifting what's happening in urban communities, but I love how you're revamping your organization, and like you're looking at what you guys have done that's not been working, and you're like, okay, we need to switch something up, and because we see that this is not working for a Pacific people or a Pacific community, and that is again, that's kudos to you all for that, because I mean, that's important. Like some people can get egos and be like, well, we're doing the work no matter who it's impacting. No, if it's not helping everyone, then something needs to be done, because right, again, or like you say, if you can't feel like you can't do it or you can't reach, how can we reach the people that can reach so that we can get these numbers down? I just want to point out to the listeners, if you guys are listening to this and you know someone who may have an issue with opiates, because again, it is really right now a deadly thing in the Black community. Please share this. Please, take down this information and have this in your back pocket. Find a way that you can maybe get some Narcan to help out. Because again, we need to be saving our people. And we know, again, right now, this is something that's happening in the Black community, and it's really huge out here. And then if you just need help, if you have questions, don't be shying away to really reach out and get this resource and this help. No matter what it is, if it's a weed thing, hey, contact, see what help you can get. Yeah, I just wanted to really plug that, because I know sometimes we can shy away from help, but here it is. And if you can't help, you're saying you have people who can help where they can feel safe to go to. So it's all about connecting. I do also want you to tell us, what is one thing that you are most proud about your organization?
Wow, that's a tough one, because as you were just talking about the fact that, we are looking to revamp, it's not to say that what we were doing was wrong in the past, but it wasn't working for everybody.
Exactly.
And I think that, you know, we've won awards, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you like, this is what I'm most proud of, or this is what I'm most proud of. But like, we just had a big event yesterday, and it's supposed to be like our biggest fundraiser. And it was great. And we had, you know, kids there, and we had people in recovery there. And it was like very diverse in terms of like ages and gender and races and the whole thing. And it's going to help us be able to provide Narcan, particularly in the city, but it's also going to help us provide early education for kids, like beginning in pre-K and kindergarten. And I think the thing that I love most about my staff is that we celebrated how great the event was. And then it was like, okay, how can we make it better for next year? And it's not to say that we don't celebrate our successes, but we are just constantly as a team looking for ways to improve. So we're like always trying to make it a little bit better, not so that we can raise more money, not so that we can get to more eyeballs and people can see us, but because ultimately, like, we want to help more people. You know, everyone in my organization has seen the consequences of addiction firsthand, whether it's their own addiction or whether it's a family member or a partner. And we just desperately want to prevent that. And so we're constantly looking for ways to do better and to be better. And I think that is what I'm most proud of our staff. And it comes across in awards and things like that, but it's not about that. No. We want to prevent the things that we went through or the things that we might be going through currently. We want to prevent that. The last thing that I'll say, unless you had any other questions for me, but, you know, we can provide people with Narcan. We have several distribution points throughout the city. We are constantly working with partners out in the field to distribute overdose kits. They're these little red drawstring bags that have lots of resources in them, including Narcan. And if anybody needs Narcan, they just can email us. Our website again is prevent+Ed.org. We can't get somebody help if they're not alive. So we need to keep people alive so that then we can get them assistance. And most people who are overdosing, no matter what color you are not doing it intentionally. They are mixed, their drugs are being mixed with fentanyl, which is deadly. And so they might be using a drug to cope, but they do not have a death sentence. Right. And so we are losing far too many people, and in particular, far too many of our Black men to a drug that is designed to kill. And so if anyone needs Narcan, please, there are no questions asked. We will even do a brief training if someone needs to know how to administer it. I carry it on me constantly because you never know when you're going to need it.
Real quick, before we do end, I do want to get on for people who may be bystanders.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about that real quick. What if you are just a bystander? Should you carry Narcan?
So yes. So yes and yes. That's with 3 exclamation marks. So the former Surgeon General actually said that it should be like CPR. Like, just like everybody knows CPR, everybody should carry Narcan. Let me tell you a quick story. So I had some work done on my house. I live in the city, had some work done on my house. The guy came to bid it out, and he said, wow, he said, you know, I'm in the city a lot, and I'm doing a lot of jobs. And, you know, I've seen a couple of people that I'm not quite sure if they've overdosed or what. Like, I don't want to like hurt them, but like, well, what should I do? And I said, well, first of all, you should try to intervene, because maybe they're just having a heart attack. If they're having a heart attack, you should still probably try to intervene. Like, let's be good Samaritans here, right? So that's number one. But number two is, I'm going to get you some Narcan. So he said, oh, I don't know about that. And I said, no, I'm going to get you some Narcan. I'm going to show you how to use it. So this was last year. So I gave him Narcan. I showed him how to use it. He's like, oh, I'm probably never going to need it. A month ago, he calls me and he says, I was at Schnucks and I pulled up in the parking space, and there was this woman and her friend, and the woman was just pounding on her chest doing CPR. And he said, I held up the bag you gave me. I knocked on the window and I said, do you need this? She rolled down the window, grabbed it, gave it to her friend, one nostril, kept doing CPR, waited 2 minutes. The woman hadn't come back to life yet. So she gave the other dose on the other nostril. The woman sprang alive. The other woman got in the car and they drove off.
Wow.
So first thing he says, how come she didn't want help? And I said, well, that might come later.
Yeah.
And it also might not.
It
right?
might, right.
Okay.
But what you did do is you saved someone.
That's what and he was like, I guess that's right.
Yeah.
He said, so I think I need more Narcan. I said, yeah, you do. But here's what's so important for everyone listening or you know, hearing us today. Let's say you are a bystander. If you give Narcan after you've shaken them, they're not responding, you're not sure. If they're having a heart attack and you give them Narcan, you're not hurting them at all.
Okay.
Nothing's going to happen. Okay. Let's say that they like drank too much. Okay. And you give them Narcan. That's not going to hurt them.
Okay.
Let's say that, that you have been using also, and you give your friend, because let's say they're now overdosing, you're coherent enough, they're coherent enough to give them Narcan. Let's say first responders come. You're not getting in trouble. There are laws that are called Good Samaritan laws that we are encouraging people to dial 911, not to drop your friend off at the front of the emergency room OD'd. Like that happens far too often.
Yeah, because they're scared they're going to get in trouble because they're doing something illegal. But in the sense, like there's laws that protect you from getting in trouble at this instance because you're saving a life.
It's exactly like when you were a teenager and you're at a party and something's going on with your friend and you're like, ooh, I don't want to like call or anything because like the EMTs, I don't want to call police because I don't want to get in trouble. Right. Well, you're like weighing your options here. Like, do you want to get in trouble or do you want your friend to die? And like, I know that sounds really like extreme, but when we're dealing with opiates and when we're dealing with fentanyl, it's not extreme.
No.
So everyone should carry it, especially I would say if you live or work in
an
the
area
St. Louis
where
region.
Really high. Yeah, highly.
And I'll just say St. Louis because there's a lot.
St. Louis, yeah.
Jeffco is like, you know, there's problems everywhere is what I'll say, but you should carry it. And then if you use, you should also carry it because we want people that if you did overdose, we want there to be something near you that could potentially save your life.
Wow. That's important. I'm glad we highlighted that and talked about that.
Me too.
Because I do want to again say y'all listening, y'all hear this, get you some Narcan, just like you should have like a CPR pack or a first aid kit in your car. Put it in your car. You never know. Like she said, you're not going to hurt anybody if they're not using. You don't know. And if you find someone that's laid out, pat them down. They might have it in their pocket. You never know. Or look in their bag. You're not going to get in trouble. You're trying to save their lives. But either way, y'all get some Narcan. And if someone is just wanting to know, like, hey, I want to know how to use Narcan, I want to get some and learn, they can come to you all and get that great information and learn that how to use it and all that good stuff.
That's right.
All right. Well, y'all, she said it, prevent.ed.org. That's the website. Go check it out. Anything else you feel like we need to cover before we end this great segment?
The one other website that I'll plug, and it's also ours. Let's say you're trying to like talk to a family member, try to have that tough conversation because you've noticed that there's some stuff going on. Or let's say you have a kid or you're part of a village that has a kid and you're kind of like, how do I even start talking about this kind of stuff? If you go to talkaboutitmo.com, there's age-specific talking kits. So let's say you have a first grader. You can pull up like, what are age-appropriate ways for me to talk to my first grader? Or let's say, you have your grandson in your care and he's in high school and you're concerned about some friends he's been hanging out with or something like that. We have a talking kit for you, do's and don'ts, tips and tricks. And they're just, if nothing else, they're just reassurance on the things that you want to accomplish before you go into the conversation. It shouldn't be like that one and done drug talk or sex talk. It should be an ongoing conversation, but it can be scary and it can be awkward. Yeah. Embrace the awkward. Go to talkaboutitmo.com if you need any assistance. We got you.
Yes, and what I'm going to say is, y'all, we got to get uncomfortable and have these uncomfortable conversations continuously, and not only with each other, but people outside of our communities and also our children, because these things are real, and we want everybody to be living and thriving and surviving. Okay.
Surviving and thriving. So not just surviving, thriving. So we got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes. And that's the only way we're going to get it done. All right, y'all. Well, this was a great, again, I really am excited that you reached out, because again, this is something that's happening in our communities and we need to uplift and talk about. And here is one resource, not only for people who may be using, but for organizations, grassroots organizations that want to get into this work more and really get some backbone and some help and some assistance. Reach out, y'all. Reach out, because we need to make an impact. You heard it here. Our Black men are dying in high numbers of overdose, and women now after COVID. And we really need to make sure that we're out here uplifting this conversation and having this more conversation more and tapping into this resource. All right. Well, that is it for this episode. Keep tuning in, y'all. Y'all know I'm going to keep bringing the Hood Needs segment to y'all, because I want y'all to know all about all the resources that's happening in St. Louis and how we can, like she said, not only survive, but thrive. And we out, y'all. Yay! Thank you for tuning in to the Hood Talks podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page and also follow us on all our social media.